Warning, the following video has flashing lights and also includes content that may be deemed inappropriate for some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. Who dares awaken me from my slumber? Susie from Emergency Encounters. Yes, this must mean you and I have some business to attend to. Yet I have been sleeping for so long. I really do need to replenish lost nutrients, and I see you brought me something to indulge myself on. Absolutely delicious. I do adore you and thank you for releasing me from my silver shackles and chains. Now, without further ado, it is time for Susie and myself to take a walk into the madness. My creatures of the night, once again you are tuning in to Midnight Lycanthropy here on LordeStarfox Radio. We do have a member of the Midnight Society science team already sitting around the late night fire, getting ready to burn the midnight timber into the early hours of the morning. Yes, of course, I'm referring to Susie from Emergency Encounters. You should recognize that name. She is a bi-weekly host and part of the good old squad. Tonight, we are going to be stomping around the 207 Maine area. Yes, a place I am very familiar with. We do have a few contracts we must collect. Susie, my friend, are you ready to take a walk into the madness tonight?
Absolutely, LordeStarfox. Let's dive into it.
Ha, excellent. Glad you are hanging out with us again. And these are some pretty interesting ones for sure. I like to try and dig up some cases that are not covered as much as some of the other more popular ones. Sure, if somebody wants to talk about those, I dive into them, try to get the squad's good old file cabinet upstairs churning, or as my uncle likes to say, hey, you were up pretty late last night, the hamster cage was rolling. Both of these cases are in Maine. I'm only going to say the main part for the first one because the second one is up here as well. After the first case, of course, we are going to allow Susie to chime in and try and figure out with us what occurred here. Also, if you have any questions, leave them down below in the comment section. April 2014, a game warden is out making sure no one is poaching or trespassing. We do have a game warden here. I was able to verify that aspect. Again, though, just because somebody's a game warden or somebody is flipping pizzas down the street, it doesn't make one more reliable than the other. All right, meaning just because somebody is a game warden, they can more or less still yank your chain too. I did not get that vibe from this individual. I have before been able to speak to a ton of other forest rangers, park rangers, game wardens about some of the feral people things that are going on. Yes, I'm not going to say he's not telling us everything. I just wanted to bring that up because a lot of times I think people automatically give a free pass if somebody is, per se, a higher up individual, like maybe a police chief or somebody that is just stocking shelves at Hannaford. It doesn't matter, though, because that individual at Hannaford could be even more reliable. Parking his truck, this warden gets out to more thoroughly scope an open area. As he is walking, all he hears is the crunch of his boots on the snow, and he sees his breath in the air, yet everything else is eerily silent. Scanning around, he sees something that looks to be enormous, jet black, wolf-like, bolting towards something a few hundred yards away. Pulling out his scope, he realizes this is a black bear that is being bolted at by something he believes looks to be a werewolf. The man sees the two creatures begin battling each other. He said the black bear loudly growled before standing up on two legs and falling forward to clamp its jaws down on the leg of this strange werewolf creature. Shortly after the bear began chewing the creature's leg, the dogman violently slashed at the bear's face with its long claws, shrieking out in pain. The snow becomes red with the blood of the bear before it keels over. Still enraged by the fact it was bitten during the fight, this strange canine creature picks up the black bear with two long arms and chucks it off a nearby tree. Completely terrified at this point, the warden raises his boomstick beside him and fires it off in the air in an attempt to scare off this creature, which somehow miraculously worked, allowing the man to bolt back to his truck and speed off. What do you think about that one, eh?
Wow, that's really interesting. I'm kind of just baffled. You would think so. My thing is like, I wonder if he had a chance to go back and collect any evidence later, maybe some hair, some blood, because if that bear was able to bite him, don't you think it would have drew some blood as well?
Yes. See, and those are some of the questions I would just ask, meaning I have not had a chance to speak to him more since then. You would think, yet I don't know. Maybe he was told not to. Maybe he was afraid, or maybe this isn't fully at face value.
Yeah, because I would think he would at least want to go back and collect the bear's corpse and have it analyzed. If there was something like absolutely incredible, some kind of animal that he hasn't documented before, you'd want to, if not like track it down, try to capture it, look for any kind of blood, hair evidence, but also look for claw and teeth marks to identify it on the bear.
I cannot disagree or refute any of that. All I know is some of the cases that are more nightmare fueled in regards of seeming to have a lot of action, as if this one was presented to us, always have some of those holes where the ones, if people just see something and it runs off and they're able to cast a track or such, those ones tend to have more evidence attached to them. Interestingly enough, doesn't mean the more horror filled ones aren't necessarily true. Makes you wonder, though, why there's a lot of holes inside of that.
Yeah, that's the way I feel about it too. And it almost feels like maybe there was some grain of truth in there somewhere. Maybe he saw something out of the corner of his eye and it just kind of eventually grew up and into a bigger story. Who knows? But very fascinating.
Yeah, so interesting. He seemed like a super nice dude. Like I said, he reached out to us. Again, I guess he could just be trolling us. It's quite apparent what you and myself and the rest of my squad do over here. It's really not that hard to, if you wanted to troll somebody, just to reach out to them. I know other people that know him, though. Again, none of them have kind of got that vibe. Yet none of them have also been able to speak to this individual again. I've tried to send out some emails. This was quite a long time ago. Don't even know if he's still working for them or if he's changed his email. It's one of those things, unless somebody can actually get him to come and sit down on a show per se and really able to hear the full story out of his mouth and ask some questions and such. This is going to be one of those that just stays at like a 50-50. It's really hard to add more credence to it, and it's really hard to debunk it because there's nothing else we can go off of as far as I know except what I presented to you.
I agree. You could be trolled, or it could be somebody that wants to tell their story, but they're too scared of the repercussions, or were, like you said before, told not to.
So bizarre. As I earlier stated, there are emails I've seen before where these wardens and park rangers are talking to each other about how, in cases where people are missing, whether it's potentially maybe cryptids like Dogman, feral people, they have these basically independent contractors that go in more or less and cull the populations, and they'll bring these rangers with them and wardens to put up signs saying, hey, landslides up here or loose ground, gravel, etc. Dangerous, stay out of these areas. Just so that way they're well aware of the areas where things are occurring. Pretty bizarre.
Yeah, that is just really fascinating. And that's interesting that you make that point where they kind of warn you off from the area, but don't tell you exactly. I mean, hey, we're out here trying to find this cryptid or cull these creatures, Um, there's an avalanche or landslide here, so
Mm-hmm.
don't go in there. That's the first time I've heard of that. So that's really fascinating.
Yeah, or like broken road ahead or a broken bridge, etc., where for the most part, people aren't going to go past that point. The ones that do, well, they either have a run in with the broken bridge or road or maybe something else.
Yeah, I would definitely think you'd want to put some kind of barrier regardless in case somebody's a fence ducker.
Yes, you would like to think. Yeah, I do know before we roll on to this next one at Yellowstone National Park, they didn't have gates up around the geysers till recently when people decided to be geniuses and chuck plastic into the geysers. So when they explode, you have, flaming pieces of plastic bottles flying everywhere. Genius. And you also had two individuals that tried to go swimming in there. Yeah, let's see how that worked out. Everyone can figure that out on their own. Then you had somebody else that decided to cook their dinner chicken in there, and that is not safe water. There is a lot of toxins and bad stuff up in there. And what do you think happened to them, too? So, yeah, you would like to think you don't need to put, a fence around an exploding hot water geyser, but apparently you have to.
Well, that's my neck of the woods.
This one right here, I covered, and Kevin is actually a friend of mine, and he has a podcast called Where the Weird Ones Are. He's talked about this before in a few different spots. It's, again, though, a slept on story. We have August 2016, Shapley. Local man Kevin Sapal Jr. is sleeping late one night when suddenly his dogs begin acting frantically and growling at the window. Wondering what has caused them to be so upset, Sapil gets up and turns on the front porch to see if he can see anything outside in the darkness. As he is looking out his window and door, suddenly Kevin sees a small coyote limping down the driveway towards his house. Feeling sad for the animal, he turns off the light to calm down his dogs and ponders what to do. No sooner had he turned off the porch light, Sapale sees the coyote all of a sudden casually trot off, no longer limping. Confusion set in and quickly turned to horror when outside in the shadows, Kevin sees an enormous bipedal, midnight black, human like dog creature with glowing amber eyes walk out into plain sight and begins glaring at him through the window before casually turning around and walking away out of sight into the darkness of the forest. Kevin said he got the feeling that the coyote was trying to either lure his dogs or him outside in an attempt to set up an ambush distraction for that strange creature. Sapale says he has never seen the eerie beast again and hopes that it stays far away. Shortly after his encounter, he moved out of the remote house out of fear of having another interaction with this creature. What do you think of that one, my friend?
That one feels a little more valid, to be honest. I've lived out in the middle of the wilds of Oregon, and I've seen that behavior out of coyotes. My only question is why would a coyote and a dogman team up?
Now you asked that, what if I told you we actually have some really bizarre cases of dogmen running with wolves and coyotes as if to try and blend in with them? There's been some pretty bizarre cases where people saw
Hmm.
packs of what they thought were wolves, and all of a sudden one of them stands up. Same thing with like the coyotes. They've seen packs, and all of a sudden they see something that looks way too big to be the rest of them, and it stands up. Makes me wonder potentially as if they just are able to realize, hey, it's a food source, and that they could actually work and collab together. There's a lot of predators that benefit from one another like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I know that. I'd always heard that Dogman was solitary. So that's really surprising to me. It must be more really. It must be more animalistic and more feral than human at all for an order those wild animals to be like accepting of that creature. Does that make sense?
Of course, it makes sense. I think maybe some of the lone cases could be a lone wolf, just like a male is in a wolf pack, except it's a dog man. We have the Palmyra case with the Martin family where there was 4 or 5 of them. I covered 2 cases recently, also up in Maine. One of them, there was 4 or 5 of these dog men as well. Then you have a couple other sieges on areas where there's a pack, 4 to 5 of these things as well. I think potentially it's just going to depend on the area and if you're welcomed in the pack, meaning a lot of people don't realize if you're a lone wolf, it's because nobody else in the pack liked you. You've been booted out.
So, this is a random question. I'm going to divert slightly. Has there ever been reports of juvenile or baby dogmen?
Yes, we actually got the amazing case of Pat and Joe, blue-eyed northern from the LBL, where it looks to be a female dog woman holding her pup as they are using infrared. Pat and Joe going down the back roads of the LBL. It literally looks like this pup wants to run away for a second. She grabs it right back, and you can see her eyes looking over at them. It's as if they are able to realize, wait a second, we don't need the infrared in our eyes right now. The tabium lithium, which is that lens that glows, right? And then it shuts his eyes off more or less, and you can still see it on the infrared. It's so gnarly. Then you have another case down from the LBL where someone was driving in the summer, had his windows down, heard some rustling in the tall grass, slowed down, and as he slowed down, he saw this bipedal female looking canine like thing that turned, looked back into the tall grass, and then 4 or 5 pups more or less came out yipping and biting at each other, how puppies would act, and bolted off into the grass on the other side of the road. She casually walked off towards them as well. And if I was able to have my book open as well, there's probably at least 2 or 3 more cases involving that.
Wow, that's crazy to me. Like, wow. I mean, it makes sense, but why do they hate humans so much?
That's a great question as well. And as I was digging through the brain upstairs, you also have another case in Michigan that was on Monster Quest where you have 3 friends that were driving and they saw, I believe it was 3 to 4 of these canine like dog creatures squatting down by the water. So they got out and kind of tried to sneak up on them, and they realized that they had hands, like you and I, and they're cupping the water to drink out of it. And then these things turned their head and realized they were there, and they bolted off. That's another case where it was more than one of them. I mean, let's be real. What animal really likes people unless you gain their trust? Every animal that's naturally in the wilderness, what happens usually when a person walks by? It bolts off, correct? Unless you build a rapport. So I just think any animals realize that humans are probably going to do one of two things: fire a boomstick at you to scare you off, or do it to consume you potentially. That's why if you look at coyotes in a lot of parts of the country, they're terrified of people because their population's been culled for so long.
That's a very, very good point. I'm also a weirdo, and I would get yelled at by my parents quite often as a child for petting wild animals in the woods. So, good point. Huh. Wow, that is just really fascinating. My gut reaction, though, to both of these stories is number two just seems to kind of hold more water for me. I don't know why. It just sounds more plausible, I guess.
100%. And also, there aren't really any holes in the aspect. I mean, he tells you he didn't want to go outside after, you had some coyotes running around. He just saw this. His dogs are flipping out. He sat down with his boomstick and passed out after from trying to stay up all night. He said his head was pointed towards the ceiling the next morning, and he had a cracked neck for like a week or so. Yet, yeah, I agree with you. I mean, Kevin's a pretty straightforward dude. He's worked with Drewski from Cryptid Warfare, Jessica Jones, the Cryptid Huntress, some other people. He answered all the questions I had for him. Also, seems pretty straightforward. And I mean, I've heard that before, so none of that was far fetched to me, right? Meaning, yeah, you like to think that this warden caught a royal rumble between a black bear and a dogman. That's just what I mean about how those are fascinating, but just show me something, like you said. Where are their tracks? Where are anything? It just kind of seems more like a creepy pasta because I can't verify anything. For me to be able to present something to a scientific panel, I can tell you right now that would not be in my top 100 by any means.
Yeah, I agree with you. Oh man, that's just really interesting. Um, and bears really are not afraid of pretty much anything except for
Hmm.
maybe each other. So to have it running away, I don't know. They're more likely to fight than they are, you
Hmm.
know. I've seen quite a few bear fights, so really interesting.
Right? So gnarly. And that actually reminds me real quick. I saw a trail cam the other day of a looked to be elderly black bear that was a little banged up. I don't know the exact point in times, but later on you see a grizzly coming through the same area. Do grizzlies predate on black bears, or would they tend to avoid each other? Wolves don't go out of their way specifically to brawl with a grizzly bear. They are trolling the grizzly bear, meaning there's an example of this pack of wolves. They didn't want the moose that the grizzly bear had just gotten his hands on. They wanted to let this mother grizzly bear realize that her cub, that's what we're there for. You know what these wolves did? They laid down maybe, I don't know, 7, 10 feet away, just trolled this bear, just sat there. Okay. The following day, the people that were covering this on National Geographics no longer saw that cub. Okay. The cub was gone. Could something else have occurred? Sure. But they know that wolves do this. So the wolves got that cub, just like they told the mother they were going to do that.
Yeah, got the cub in one aspect to be able to, predate that cub, but also to get her away from the moose that they could eat that as well. And I do know, especially up here, grizzlies will attack black bears very, very much so. They're like three, 4 times their size.
So that poor old black bear probably didn't have a nice ending.
No, more than likely not.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, again, that makes sense. Yet, geez, it's just so crazy how, predation works and such like that. That's what I always try to tell people is what we think we know is only 60% of what we actually know. Forrest Galanti preaches that because no one spends their whole entire time around a whole species of an animal. All right. They're usually spending it around one or two, which animals have different personalities. So when we're basing something off how an animal reacts or behaves, people got to realize that's only like a 60% guesstimate. We can't really just fully take that at face value, meaning, oh, wait a second, it did that? Well, yeah, of course, because what makes you think you understand an animal's behaviors fully? Are you a raccoon? No. All right, then.
Exactly. I agree with you. Wow. Those are really cool stories. Like, yeah.
Appreciate you. It's one thing, like I said, I'm really trying to do is just bring up some cases that are not necessarily slept on purpose, but just ones that aren't really heard of that much. At the moment, I have 555 pages in my book I'm working on. It's like a honey pot where I can just go through and I have it broken down into different regions. So that way I can figure out where something is located. And then from there, I can just find the state, right? Like, for example, the Northwest, the Southwest, the Midwest, the South, the Southeast, the land between the lakes, the Great Lakes, and then the Northeast. And I have it broken down all into that. And there's just so many encounters. Probably for the most part, maybe 30 or so per state. I do know there's a couple in there that might only have like 4 or 5, but yeah, there's a lot up here in Maine for sure that we will still be able to cover here in the future.
Well, I can't wait to hear about those.
No, it's going to be some good stuff. I try to maybe do 2 per episode. That way, myself and the hosts, such as yourself, are able to ask some questions back and forth and dive into them. The other night, I had to, no problem. I mean, it's my podcast. I should be able to speak for the whole time if I had to. Yet I had a cancellation, but still really wanted to get out something. I had to talk myself for 22 minutes. Gross. Came out awesome. Yet it's much better to be able to present that with somebody else as well. I've already heard these cases, I've already dove into them.
Yeah, that is a very good, valid point.
And
Fascinating.
right, William Scott White, one of our scientists, has said that he knew some people that were actually mountain men and they would put on the wolf skins and the bear skins. And he said he knew these people underneath there. And it was absolutely terrifying where it just didn't look right. They didn't look human or animal, they looked like a beast.
Mm. And what a way to blend in, because I know that the our indigenous tribes used to use that to blend in with the animals during hunting
Mhm.
by wearing their skins.
And not
Hmm.
even just the indigenous culture. Let's think for a second if, per se, criminals in areas are playing into it. I know it's happened before. Also, there's some other cases where people were wearing like the wolf skins and had some like crazy, like Freddy Krueger type claws on. Think that for a second, right? If you and I are going into an area and we happen to dive into this topic, we're aware of it, you're already a little bit letting your mind wander. But now someone's never even heard of any of this. Okay. So let's take 3 of us, 2 that have heard of it, 1 that hasn't. As it's becoming almost night, so like dusk, you see this 6'4", because we're not the best at height range. So we could be like, oh, that's like 6 to 8 feet tall. Man, that's pretty, decent sized, wearing this wolf skin with these Wolverine like claws that you're not going to be able to really see from the distance because it's in the shadows. You're going to think you're seeing now a jet black wolf like creature. Think how that's going to affect all 3 people. It's going to install so much terror. And also, unfortunately, a lot of those individuals that are partaking in those sinister type acts enjoy the hunt.
I mean, yeah, that's a very good perspective. You never know what you've got out there, whether it's animal or just some crazy person.
Definitely some really gnarly stuff for sure.
Wow. Well, I appreciate you telling me that, because now I've got a new obsession.
No, I appreciate you as well. It's one of those things I just try and make sure that I can get information out there.
Hmm. Wow. Yeah, you've just blown my mind. So
This is
that's
good.
awesome,
Nerd life, right?
right?
Well, before we do let you get back to things you need to attend to, do you have any other thoughts about the two cases that we covered tonight? Do you have any questions for myself? If not, definitely make sure to give yourself, as our buddy JJ Messenger says, the shameless plug and let everybody know where they can track you down.
No, I think you've covered it pretty good. I mean, I'll probably come up with more questions for next time, let me tell you. Um, and you can find me at Intuitive Taurus Moon on YouTube. And I'm also on Emergency Counters Wednesday nights, 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. So I give readings. And if you want any kind of guidance or energy check ins or speak to your loved ones, reach out and we'll have a chat.
Thank you for kicking it with us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. I mean, this been really awesome. I appreciate it.
Oh, my creatures of the night. I do adore every single one of you legends. Please like, comment, subscribe, share the truth to the algorithm. And remember, there are things that go bump in the night.